Yo, what up? Jason Breakdown here with Breakdown Fitness, and we're going to give a little tutorial today about proper overhead shoulder function. Okay, these shoulder presses can definitely, in all these different regards, as far as CrossFit, your Olympic lifts, you're doing your standard bodybuilders, anything going overhead, we can so easily destroy our rotator cuffs, anterior deltoids, create terrible impingement in those shoulders. And that's why a lot of people altogether just don't do shoulder presses anymore. Military dumbbell, it doesn't even matter. But through a lot of my education, I've learned how we can reintroduce these suckers and actually start to rehab and repair and get better shoulder function than we ever had before by putting one specific thing into play that not a lot of people utilize, is our back into play with our shoulder overhead movement. So what you're going to see is we're going to kind of revert ourselves back to the old school rules of a lot of these Olympic lifts and how these guys are taught to do their snatches and jerks and a lot of these overhead presses. And again, this is by utilizing the function of our trapezius muscles and our rhomboids and our basically the unit of our scapula to pull back and together to help aid that shoulder pulling itself back into true flexion. Now, what you'll see, in the pictures above of a good position, you'll see head through the shoulders. And that simple little tip alone, by you guys working on that, is going to allow the muscles, as you'll see on the pictures above, of the trapezius muscle, the rhomboid muscles to come in together. And again, this is all going to help aid the ability to externally rotate those shoulders, to pull those shoulders back into a good place. And the picture down below is an example of an old school kind of approach to these shoulder presses in which you keep yourself very protracted. And when you see these angles up overhead, we're not even at this really good 90 degree. We want to be head through, create this vertical basis, but our shoulders drawn back. So therefore, again, these scapula, our trapezius muscles, the rhomboids, the rotator cuff muscles that all encapsulate this kind of pull back and together of those shoulders can come into play to help stabilize the holy daylights out of our shoulders. And again, we can eliminate a lot of this impingement of this internal rotation here, where a lot of people like to finish in the shoulder press with these elbows out all ugly and everything like that. So now we can learn, instead of kind of falling short and creating this impingement of this anterior deltoid through these overhead movements, if we can just keep ourselves, again, with this proper torque of coming up and through and driving that head in, allowing you to feel these trapezius muscles to come into play when we finish of driving up, getting the head through. Now we're going to see that this external rotation and again the aid of our back, drawing those shoulders back and together, is only going to allow us to get more and more shoulder flexion coming truer. It's going to help eliminate a lot of this impingement that gives us this cliche bodybuilder meathead look that a lot of people are trying to steer away from these days and trying to realign their shoulders in a good position. So very simply, the cue of the day on your overhead movements is head through your arms. Head through your arms, and you're going to notice that your traps and your rhomboids are going to function like no other when you keep on replaying these cues in your head through your training. The first time that you approach this, it's going to feel a little tight, a little weird, but the more and more you start to work on it, you're going to start to see, wow, my shoulders are just basically a mere extension of my back that wrap around the front of me, So that's why, even fundamentally speaking, I like to keep my shoulder days really close and or in conjugation with your back, because there's a lot of articulation that works kind of hand in hand. It's like saying, I'm working on my quads today, but I'm also doing my squats. Well, again, it's a whole system of movements that we're trying to put together to make a greater complex. And therefore, as well, you'll be able to bust yourself out as a lot of pesky plateaus due to these missing links. A lot of times we get these injuries due to some muscle not functioning properly. And again, that is probably in the overhead press in that realm, because we're not turning on our scapulas enough. All those scapular muscles, as far as the rotator cuff muscles themselves, the rhomboid, the trapezius muscles, that all aid in that function. Okay, so again, the cue of the day, head through the arms on your overhead presses, and again, you'll see that your traps and rhomboids will be activated like no other, and again, will help eliminate a lot of the shoulder impingement problems, alright? Breakdown Fitness, utilize.